Hello and welcome to Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards and tell you if they're any good in the Pauper format or not. It is episode 200. We made it. If you asked me when I started this thing if I would make it to 200 episodes, I would have laughed in your face because I didn't think I would have the staying power to do something like that. And I, honestly, I'm surprised that enough people here have been interested in watching it. So thank you for coming out for 200 episodes. This is going to be a generally normal episode, although I think probably I'll just end up doing a bunch of bonus cards. Maybe we'll do 20 cards today. So you'll get an extra long episode for 200, but I do have something to celebrate 200 episodes, and that is this box. One of the decks inside this box. I'm gonna be doing my first deck tech. I'm gonna record it right after I do this, so it should go up the same day. But that is a new deck that I'm pretty excited about, despite how much Universes Beyond stuff is in there. I can't help it sometimes, but that's going to be fun. I'm excited to do a deck tech and see what you guys think about it and where it could be improved as well. So check that out. But for now, let's take a look at some common Magic the Gathering cards, shall we? We'll start with Wild Dogs. Single green mana for a 2/1 dog. At the beginning of your upkeep, if a player has more life than each other player, the player with the most life gains control of this creature, and it cycles for 2, which means you can discard it and draw a card. This doesn't seem all that great. Wild Dog's originally from Urza's Saga, but it reminds me a lot of... there are a couple cards that are like this. I remember a Kamigawa Ogre, I think. Ooh, can I find this card? It's like a red card, and it's an ogre, and it's from the, let's just go on the block. Kamigawa block. And it's like whoever has the most cards in their hand gains control of this guy. Yeah, here you go. So Kenzen Renegade. At the beginning of your upkeep, if a player has more cards in hand than any other, the player with the most cards gains control of Kenzen Renegade. So we've had a couple of cards like this in Magic before. Well, I guess not before Wild Dogs. Wild Dogs came before Kenzen Renegade. Woo. But Wild Dogs is... It's weird, right? Because it's a Savannah Lions, but it's a Savannah Lions that isn't as good as Savannah Lions because somebody else could potentially take control of it at some point. You've got to make sure you keep up the most life to keep control of Wild Dogs, but also it's a 2/1. It's kind of just gonna, trade with something eventually. So that's not really a huge deal. I guess the idea is that if you can put this down first on turn 1 and continue to attack with it or clear their board to make sure this thing continues to attack, then you'll be able to do some aggressive pressure and you'll always get to keep Wild Dogs in your hand. And then the cycling is always nice. Just cool to get a little extra value if you draw this one on like turn 5. You don't necessarily want to play Wild Dogs on turn 5, especially if you're losing the life race at that point. So it's nice that you can discard it away and draw another card instead. I love this art. I think this art looks really good. But I think the Urza Saga art looks pretty good too. Overall, I mean, this certainly isn't going to be played in Pauper. I think this would be fun in a game like Commander where you have more players and you can figure out the life gain and when this card goes to different people. But would you ever put it in a Commander deck for yourself? Because you're probably just going to lose it at some point. So it's probably not actually that good in that format. But it would make for a more fun play in the same way that something like the Monarch makes for more fun play in Commander because it forces people to, try to play a mini game. Like, can I get more life than the opponent so I can get the Wild Dogs? And it's not the best prize in the world, but it's something. This is not particularly good. I think even with an aggro style plan, in green you have a lot better options of ways of getting big, strong creatures pretty early. I think in Pauper, you have plenty of ways to ramp up, and that's where you see a lot of those aggressive Gruul decks that can put down big guys that come in and swing pretty early. This kind of a small creature doing this kind of damage, you're going to look more towards white and red that can do this, so it's a little odd that green gets a card like this. But it's interesting. It's okay. I don't want to punish it too much, but I think I don't feel good about giving it a score higher than like a 2.4, maybe even like a 2.3. It does have cycling. Let's go 2.4. What is our next card of the day? It's Mycosynth Wellspring. 2 mana for an artifact. When this artifact enters or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. Originally from New Phyrexia. So this is very much similar to an Eager Wellspring, or it kind of got the idea from Eager Wellspring. Fantastic card. Gets played in Pauper all the time. Maybe a slightly less so now that Cryogen Relic is also in the format, because those do very similar things. The idea with those cards is that they, when they're 2 mana artifacts, and when they come into play, you draw a card, and when for the Wellspring, for the Eager Wellspring, if it goes to the graveyard, you also draw a card. For the Cryogen, if it's leaves play, so you can do some blinky strategies or bounce strategies with that, and you can get a lot of value out of that. But you normally see Eager Wellspring played with any of those 2 mana black sacrifice and artifact effects, or I guess red, like Demand Answers, can do that too. You sacrifice an artifact, you draw 2 cards, and it used to be Deadly Dispute, and that was too good, so that had to get out of the format. But Fanatical Offering, Eviscerator's Insight, those kinds of things. And then Demand Answers in red, and I think there's like a new one in Marvel that's the exact same thing as Demand Answers. But the idea that, I can sacrifice this artifact, it already drew me a card when it came into play, and then I sacrifice that artifact, it draws me a card from that, and then because I sacrifice it to the Demand Answers or whatever, I draw another couple cards. So you're drawing so many cards with that, and that's a really neat thing. Mycosynth Wellspring is similar in that you will get the same amount of cards in your hand at the beginning and end of this whole sequence if you use it in the same way, but they're all going to be basic lands, and that can still be okay. That's still a lot of cards. If you need to make sure you hit your land drops, this is kind of a cool way of doing it. I think overall you're just going to want the general cards instead most of the time, because those can be lands. So if you still need the lands, you'll probably find them that way. But you don't want to guarantee you hit lands and need something else. Like later in the game where you have enough lands for whatever you need to do, you need gas at that point. So a Mycosynth Wellspring isn't quite as good. I guess it deck thins you a little bit, so your next draws are better. But overall, you're going to play Eager Wellspring. You're probably going to play Cryogen Relic if you splash blue in any way. And it makes a card like Mycosynth Wellspring a lot less useful in Pauper. But this is still a really good card. I think this is also like a really good card in Commander, where you could guarantee getting a couple basic lands off this. That's okay. I mean, it's not ramping you, but it is guaranteeing you hit your land drops, and that's pretty important too. I'm trying to think. There's also a green card from Bloomburrow, Heaped Harvest. That's the one. Let's take a look at Heaped Harvest real quick. Heaped Harvest. So this is 3 mana, but it's a food, and it does the same thing when it enters or when you sacrifice. So you do have to sacrifice it, not like you couldn't just destroy it and get the same thing that the Mycosynth Wellspring could. But when you sacrifice it, you can find a basic land card. This one actually does ramp you, though. It puts it onto the battlefield tapped. So you get 2 ramps out of this thing, and because it's a food, it can sacrifice itself, and you can gain 3 life, or you can do the same kinds of things that we talked about, Demand Answers or Fanatical Offering, and you're getting more value out of this. But this is also a really cool card that feels, similar, better in some ways than Mycosynth Wellspring, but also costs you an extra mana, and one of those mana has to be green. So I like Mycosynth Wellspring. I'm going to give this an okay score. For the Pauper format, it's not going to get a 5 or anything like that. But I will give this thing a 3.8, which I think is quite respectable generally. What is our third card of the day? It's Contagious Nim. Contagious Nim is 2 and a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian zombie with Infect. That's it. A Grizzly Bear with Infect. Infect probably is worth a mana on its own, right? So a grizzly bear with infect probably costs 3 mana. That sounds appropriate. I don't want to play that in my Pauper deck. I don't want to play that in most decks. It's too fair. But it is fair. So it's probably the right price, but I don't think it's particularly good. You have a lot of other infect cards that can come down earlier, and then you can put, a rancor on it and and up its power so the infect is doing even more. I think on turn 3 when you play this, your opponent probably has a good board of stuff that can block this, or has enough removal in their hand that they've been able to find or hold on to take care of this before it's able to get out of control. So I think you want your infect creatures to be a lot cheaper or a lot bigger, that they show up later and they're harder to deal with, and then they can come in and crash down and put a lot of poison counters on the opponent. So I think this kind of middle ground of it's an okay body, and it's got the cool keyword on it, but when the timing of it, I think is just pretty poor for what you would need for a Pauper game. So I'm going to end up giving this a 2.3, I think. Phyrexian Hulk, one of my favorite magic arts of all time. I do remember this from, it's pre-modern for sure. Is it like, it's not Invasion, is it? I don't think so. Because there's another art too that I think is pretty cool in pre-modern, but this is the one that I like. I'm going to say, ooh. Is it from the Urza's block? No, it can't be. I mean, it's a Phyrexian Hulk, right? Maybe it is Invasion. What do we got? Tempest. Ugh, I was so off. I was so off. This art, the original one from Tempest, but I do really like this 7th edition art too. That thing looks rad. It reminds me of when you get the rocket launcher in Half-Life 2. And you've got to hit all those little walkers that are going around. Is that one of the episodes, maybe? I think that might be right. But I really like this art as well. But this classic one, this thing looks rude. I didn't even know there was this art, but yeah. I love this card. It's not very good, though. It's a 6 mana 5/4. Any deck can play it, and that's fine. But, I guess we can play the same game that we usually play with the 5 mana green creatures, but is a 6 mana 5/4 better than an Avenging Hunter? It's not. This is vanilla, and I think 5/4 for 6. I know it's all colorless, but think of all the good cards you can get for 6 colorless mana. There's plenty of Tron cards that you can look at and go, whoa, that's pretty cool. Or at Tron, knowing that you're making 7 mana with Tron, you can get so many good 7 drops at that point. So having I was going to say a good 6 drop, but this is not a good 6 drop. Having a good 6 drop, though, generally is not as important into Tron matchups, and that's really the only place I think you would even consider playing a card like this. So I think this is a little disappointing on all fronts. The art's so cool, though. Look at the thing. It just looks like it's going to murder you. I gotta go for like a 2. It probably deserves to even be in the 1s, but I love the art so much that I can't possibly dip it down into the 1s. So I'll stick with a 2, and we'll move on. Memory Leak is 2 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. You choose a non-land card from that player's graveyard or hand, and exile it. Interesting. And it cycles for 1. I like a cycle 1. Don't get me wrong about that. This is interesting. I usually want my graveyard hate to be at instant speed so I can respond to somebody trying to do something with their graveyard, especially in the Pauper format, and that happens so often. The Exhumes or the Sneaky Snackers or the Eidolons for the Tyler's Tribe decks. There's so many things that want to come out of the graveyard at instant speed. The Lotleth Giant stuff that you have to stop in Spy. So that your graveyard hate needs to be instant speed. But this spell can't be instant speed because instant speed discard is something that Wizards really doesn't like. There's ways of doing it, but you're not really going to find a whole lot of instant speed spells that say target player discards a card, unless you're Piracy Charm. For some reason, blue gets to do it, but black, the color of discarding, doesn't really get to discard your opponent at instant speed. And this one, I guess, doesn't discard it, exiles the card, but same difference in this scenario. You're not going to respond to somebody's first main phase by instant speed playing this and then exiling the card that they just drew out of their hand. Wizards kind of frowns upon that, and so they try to make it more difficult to be able to do something like that. And I think it just makes the card bad generally. This is a 3-mana spell that gets rid of one card in a graveyard or in a hand. Yeah, it exiles, and that can be kind of nice, but I'd rather play a Mind Rot at this point and make them discard 2 cards from their hand, make them lose a lot of value instead of just 1 card. Or I'd rather play, the Skullcap Snail that comes into play and forces the opponent to exile a card in their hand. Yeah, they get to choose for the snail and you get to choose for the memory leak, but I don't know. The cycling does help, because if you're in a scenario where the opponent doesn't have anything good in their graveyard and maybe doesn't have a whole lot of cards in their hand, this is never dead. You can at least cycle it for 1, and cycling 1 is really cheap. That's a great cost for cycling. When you get to cycling 2, and we saw that with an earlier card, cycling 2 is good, but cycling 1 is incredible. Yeah, I just don't love it. I think it's very slow. It's probably priced appropriately. It's probably designed well for the formats that could play it, but I don't want to play it, and I don't think you would want to play it either. So I'm going to end up giving this thing I'll go for a 2.4, and I feel like that might even be a little bit generous. What's next? What will be our 6th card of the day? Canyon Crawler is 4 and double black for a 6/6 spider beast with Death Touch. When this creature enters, you create a food token, and it has Swamp Cycling for 2. We're getting a lot of cycling today, and a lot of black cards so far as well. This is fine. This is like one of those decent limited creatures that you see. A lot of those cycling creatures, obviously not as good as the Lord of the Rings cards that have the basic land cycling, or not basic land cycling, the specific land type cycling for 1. Again, similar to just normal cycling. If you can if you can swamp cycle for 1, that's way better than swamp cycling for 2. You're gonna play your Trolls of Khazad-dûm over this 10 times out of 10. But a 6/6 Death Toucher that also makes a food token when it comes into play is a pretty solid card. Don't get me wrong, I like that. Spider and Beast are also really good creature types for lots of different decks. That's kind of cool. But overall, you're not playing this. Like the Troll gets played instead. A 6/5 with Super Ultra Menace is just better. It's just a better card in basically every situation, and it's not even necessarily because the creature's abilities, or its power and toughness, because it's a worse toughness than this, but it is that swamp cycling 1. It makes all the difference when you can go search up a land on turn 1 and make sure you hit your next land drop for turn 2, and you can't do that with Canyon Crawler. So it's fine. You're just never going to play it. So we'll go for a 2.7. That is a fine, but you're never going to play it score. Druid of the Anima. I think we just did this recently, so I won't do this one. I'll skip it, but this is pretty good. It's a 1/1. It's a 1 and a green for a 1/1 elf druid, and you can tap to add any one of Naya colors, so red, green, or white. That's pretty good for fixing. You don't really see it played, but I don't know. I mean, why couldn't an elf deck play this and then have access to these colors? The answer is it just doesn't need it. They have ways. Elves have ways of making mana of any color, so you don't really need a card that limits itself to these kinds of colors. And most of the time, they just want green anyway to keep playing bigger, better creatures. So it's fine. It's like a 3 something, but it's been done recently, so we'll skip it. to Daru Cavalier, which is 3 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier with first strike. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a card named Daru Cavalier, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. I think these guys are fun. That we obviously have a better one of these with the caw in caw gates. Oh God, what is that thing called? the damn, I forgot the name of that bird. The 2-mana bird that goes and finds more copies of that bird for you. Is he 2 mana? Is he 3 mana? I think he's 2 mana. Anyway, that card's better. You know, something hawk. Not Healer's Hawk. It doesn't matter. You know, you'll throw it down in the comments if you want. But you've got that bird that sees a decent amount of play, or at least it used to see a decent amount of play when the Azorius Caw Gates was a big deck. I think most people have gone to Naya Gates at this point because there just seems to be a lot more usable cards, probably. I think just more aggressive style of play. You lose the counter spells, but you get really protected creatures, and they can swing in for huge amounts of damage. I think the Naya version of Gates just kind of eclipsed Azorius Gates at one point. But neither here nor there. Daru Cavalier is interesting. 4 mana for a 2/2 first striker. I don't love that. That costs a little bit too much. But it does replace itself, like not only by drawing you a card here, because it doesn't exactly draw you a card, but literally replaces itself by giving you another copy of the card. So at some point, you're guaranteeing that you're continuing to play 2/2 first strikers. I don't hate that, especially if you can find ways of making this a little cheaper. If you can make white spells cost 1 less, there's ways of doing that. There's some familiars out there that can reduce the cost of white spells. And then you're getting pretty decent value. If you can get a 3 mana first striker, and that draws you another 3 mana first striker, you're starting to kind of get somewhere. Overall, though, it is still kind of slow. It isn't that great. It is a soldier. It is a human soldier, and those are good creature types for lots of things as well. But I think you are going to find that this is just a little bit of slow most of the time. So we'll end up going with a 2.6, I think. And it's really going to bug me that I cannot remember the name of that card. If I just write Hawk. It's like not Tempest Hawk, right? Maybe it is Tempest Hawk. No, not Tempest Hawk is the Dragonstorm. Squadron Hawk. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yep. There you go. You know, sometimes I can't remember every card. Knightly Valor is our next card. It's 4 and a white for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. When this aura enters, you create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, and enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance. I was just looking at this card recently because I was making, well, maybe this is a whole separate video at some point, but I've made this very dumb project where I made all these little 40 card decks, these kind of like 40 card starter decks that you could play similar in a way, like you could do Jumpstart where you can, kind of randomly pick one, but instead of folding 2 together, you could just find one good curated deck. And I did it for all the 2 and 3 mana color combinations. And then I was even stupider and did all the mono colors and a colorless and a 5 color because I'm ridiculous. But Esper ended up being knights, and I wanted a knight deck. And Knightly Valor was something I considered. I didn't end up using. Thought it was a little expensive. I didn't really care about the tokens, and I think I just had access to more interesting knights to be able to play, more interesting cards to play than this. But Knightly Valor is a cool card. I like getting a token. You know, these 2/2 knights with vigilance. You see a lot of those, whether it's things that come on extra bodies or there's like a battle that makes 2/2 knights with vigilance. There's an enchantment that's in standard. Yeah, I think it's still in. Yeah, the one from Wilds of Eldraine that has the adventure side that can make 2/2 knights with vigilance and then put 1/1 counters on all your creatures. So there's lots of these kinds of tokens out there. And I also like that the enchantment itself gives another creature 2/2 with vigilance. So that's it's making, Knightly Valor, it is making one of your other creatures kind of like one of these knights. So it does kind of bestow that valor onto them. That's cool. It's a cool idea from a flavor perspective. From a gameplay perspective, 5 mana is asking a lot. I know 5 mana here for 4/4 and vigilance worth of stats seems okay, I guess. But your opponent can blow you out really badly with this. If you try to play this 5 mana enchantment on a creature and they kill your creature, this enchantment then doesn't have a target, so it doesn't enter the battlefield. So you don't make the token, and your creature who died will not get the +2/+2 in vigilance. So you'll just lose everything at that point. And for 5 mana, that is very risky to lose everything. I don't mind cheaper auras because I'm not losing as much on them. But when you get up into like the 5 mana auras, that's a lot of mana to pay to potentially get completely blown out. So I don't particularly like it. I'm going to end up going for something like a 2.2. It really, the potential of being blown out so hard is scary enough to me that I just don't want to play this card. I really don't want to touch it at all. Stealing Stance is 1 in double white for an instant. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. It also has Forecast for 1, which means you can reveal this card from your hand, and target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So the idea is you can keep this in your hand and you can keep forecasting it any turn. Or it doesn't say once per turn, so you could. God, this is actually kind of a cool card. I didn't even remember this when I was playing in Dissension, and I definitely played in Dissension. I don't know if I had this card though. I do like the idea that as long as you have white mana, you can just keep revealing this from your hand and continue getting a buff on one of your creatures. That's a cool idea. Oh, sorry. What am I saying? Read the rest of the card, idiot. Activate only during your upkeep and only once each turn. So that is actually way worse. Well, sometimes you're just an idiot. This isn't good then. this isn't good. I don't really want a 3 mana +1/+1 everywhere. We think we have better cards than that. Don't we have one that gives all your white creatures +2/+2, and that gets played sometimes in white weenie decks? And then you certainly have ways of giving a single creature +1/+1 until end of turn. I don't like having to pay this on my upkeep before I've even drawn my card. I don't like the once per turn now that I've been so excited about the other possibilities for it. Man, I really thought we found something cool here. And then I read the rest of the card. I kind of want to revenge, like give it a 2 or maybe even worse than that. Instant speed, give all your creatures +1/+1 is good enough that it probably deserves like a 2.5. And the extra value can be okay too. Like, don't get me wrong, it's just for single mana. Flip a card around, let your opponent know you have it, and give a guy a little boost, and you can do that each turn. Okay, not terrible. What? Oh man! Speaking of cards that I remember very fondly but are not very good, Omega Mirror is 2 mana for a 1/2 artifact creature that is a mirror. Last to charge, last to fall. Goes quite well with its counterpart, Alpha Mirror. First to fight, first to win, first to charge, first to fight. Nah. Yeah, Alpha Mirror. I love the art on this one, and I also love the art on this one. Danny Orizio did them both. I just love Mirror, but neither of these are very good. I would say the Alpha Mirror is better in that it has more power. Omega Mirror is pretty terrible. Only printed in Mirrodin. I think I have like 12 copies of this thing because I played so much Mirrodin, and I really liked Mirror. And I think at one point when I was playing in school, friends of mine knew that I liked Mirror, so they would just give me all their garbage Mirror that they didn't want, and I made like one Mirror deck that was terrible. Oh, it was so bad because I had like the Mirror Matrix, which was a good card and wasn't that expensive at the time. It's become very expensive. Not very expensive, but expensive enough. And it's like, okay, I can do something now, but you have to get to 5 mana to be able to do something like that, and it's still none of your creatures are all that good. Omega Mirror is pretty bad. You should not be playing Omega Mirror under any circumstances. I think we got to dip into the ones on this one, despite how much I love it. it will get like a 1.5. This is not a very good card. That was 10. Let's get into our next 10 here with Aspect of Manticore. 2 and a red for an enchantment aura with flash and enchants a creature. And when this aura enters, enchanted creature gains first strike until end of turn. And enchanted creature gets +2/+0. I like these aspect cards. I think there's some pretty cool ones. This one's okay. It's a little expensive, but it's okay. Three mana, but you get a flash speed +2/+0 and first strike that turn. So I really like the when it enters, you get first strike part. It's a really good combat trick in that way. And yes, you do lose the first strike afterward, but you still get to keep the +2/+0, which could be really relevant on the next turn because let's say, like the best scenario for this, and the scenario that actually would happen quite often, your opponent swings into you thinking you have a bad block, so that you're either not going to block or you're going to have to chump. You block, you flash this in, you gain more power, you get first strike, you take out their creature, you keep yours. Great. Combat went really well. You're happy with that. And then the next turn comes around, your opponent's tapped out or they don't have any other creatures on the board, and now you can swing in with a bigger guy. Pretty good. I have no qualms with that. That's pretty solid. Again, I think 3 mana is just a little bit too much. I might be more comfortable with this being 2 mana and only giving a single power boost. I don't really want to hold up 3 mana in red that much. And if I do, I probably want them to be instants. I know this has flash speed, but I think there is something more to the red decks or Izzet decks that would care about instants and sorcery spells rather than enchantments that have flash. And other decks could potentially use it differently. Some kind of like Naya Bogles could do something kind of cool with that. But in Pauper, right? Yeah, I don't think you're really going to see it much at all. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is fine, but it's not amazing. So I think I'm gonna go for a 3, which is better than most of the cards we've seen today, but it's still not, playable. Jaya's Fire NATO. Man, we've gotten some really good arts today. This might be the best one we've seen. I do like that Phyrexian Hulk though. Anyway, Jaya's Fire NATO is 4 and a red for a sorcery. Jaya's Fire NATO deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you scry 1. We don't have to worry about the Planeswalker part for the Pauper format, but dealing 5 damage to a creature for 5 mana at sorcery speed, not my idea of a good time. And the Scry one is there kind of just to be like, Scry, I guess. What else can we do? Is Scry 2 too good to put on this card? Art's great. Card, I just think is a real waste. 5 mana for 5 damage at sorcery speed, especially when it can't even go face. Nah, not something I'd ever play, despite the art. I think we'll go for a 2.3. Path of Peace is 3 and a white for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. Its owner gains 4 life. Whew, we just are really not hitting very good removal spells today, are we? Originally from Portal, and that makes a little bit more sense because Portal cards were only sorceries. We didn't have any instant speed spells in Portal. Although I think you did have some spells that would say you could play it at instant speed, or you could play it in certain scenarios. You can play it at instant speed, even though they wouldn't say instant speed. The idea was Portal was a set. Or a number of sets that were there to be like really simplified magic that would help people get into the game, and part of that was not having to worry about the stack as much, so you didn't have to worry about instant speed spells and where they go in different phases and things like that. So wasn't very good then. It's been put into a couple other sets, but this is not a particularly good card. White is really good at removal. We have so many good white removal spells, and I think at this point we'd rather just pay 4 mana to destroy a creature. I think we have plenty of those. We could probably even exile the creature at that point. Maybe they have to be tapped or something, but this gives the owner of the spell or owner of the creature for extra life that they didn't really need. You know, it's kind of like calling back Swords to Plowshares at some point, but Swords to Plowshares is an instant speed spell that costs 1. This is a sorcery speed spell that costs 4. Ugh, gross. I don't like this card. I don't. I will give it a 2. It is a removal spell, and I guess I got to give it some credit for that, but it's not getting much more than that. You're ambushed on the road is a single white mana for an instant. You choose one. Either you make a retreat, which means to return target creature you control to its owner's hand, or you stand and fight, which means target creature gets +1/+3 until end of turn. This is a fun combat trick. I don't mind this. I like both of these modes. You know, the white one is pretty good in any sort of bounce deck. That's cool. You know, you can bounce your core Skyfisher, and your core Skyfisher can come in and bounce something else, so that you can then play and bounce again. Like that's fun. I don't mind that. And the stand and fight mode is okay too, as a fine combat trick thing that gives you some extra damage and some extra toughness to stave off some kind of attacker. I would rather it be +2/+2 instead of +1/+3, but you know, sometimes that'll work. That'll work for you. Single mana. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine card. It's not a great card, but it's a fine card. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3.1. Cool card. Forced Retreat is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Put target creature on top of its owner's library. This one originally from Portal 3 Kingdoms, and kind of only from Portal 3 Kingdoms. This Master's Edition doesn't really count. I mean, it's online only, but this is... is this just a Time Ebb? Does Time Ebb cost 4? No, Time Ebb, yeah, it's just a Time Ebb. Time Ebb's a classic because it's a Time Ebb. Forced Retreat, not many people know about it because it's, you know, just a Time Ebb. I know about it because I love Portal 3 Kingdoms and the 3 Kingdoms generally, so I think this is fun. But, you know, do you want to pay $2.89 for a Time Ebb, or do you want to pay, you know, 6 cents for a Time Ebb? That kind of makes it easy, right? Time Ebb also not a card that gets played in Pauper. It's a good tempo piece for sure. Like the idea of not only taking an opponent's creature off the board so then you can swing in, it messes up the opponent's draw for the next turn because they know exactly what they're going to draw. Maybe that's not helpful to them. You know, hopefully you put it on a creature that doesn't have some crazy good ETB or something. But maybe you slow down the opponent's whole game plan for a turn, and that's pretty good. Pretty good, but not at $2.89. No. Score wise, I don't know. Let's go for like a 2.5. It doesn't even really deserve a 2.5, does it? We'll give it a 2.5 anyway. I mean, Time Ebb effects are kind of cool. Vidalcan Outlander is Azorius mana, white and blue, for a 2/2 Vidalcan Scout. That's also an artifact creature. And it's got protection from red. It's from Conflux, and it's I wouldn't say this is very good. We the having the 2 different colored pips here makes it a little difficult to cast. It is kind of just a grizzly bear. The artifact, being an artifact, is okay in Azorius mana. I don't think it matters nearly as much as if it was in, you know, Grixis style mana. Any combination of the Grixis mana would be a little bit better for that. Protection from red can be okay. We see some protection from red creatures show up every once in a while. Something like there's like a falcon in the sideboards of Bogle's decks that can be pretty good to block a bunch of stuff or to swing in unimpeded. Again, in Azorius mana, I don't think we're as excited about it. This thing has no other evasion outside of protection from red, so it's not like it's going to be all that useful against any style other deck. So this is really just going to be in a sideboard, and I don't think it's nearly good enough to show up in a sideboard against a red deck. So especially if you're in Azorius, you're going to load up on, you know, Blue Elemental Blast and Hydro Blast and other counterspell stuff that's going to be way more useful to you than a 2 mana 2/2 that with protection from red, it will really not be a big deal. Let's just go for a 2. I don't think this card is all that special. Silver Deputy is 2 mana for a 1/2 artifact creature mercenary. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a basic land card or a desert card, reveal it, shuffle it, and put it on top. And you can tap it, and target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn, but you can activate only as a sorcery. That is, so this is from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and this is what the mercenary text would be, or the mercenary text would be. There's lots of tokens that can tap to give a creature +1/+0 until end of turn at sorcery speed. This guy's a mercenary, so he kind of just is like the embodiment of one of those tokens, but better because he also has the enters the battle trigger. We talked about time up a little bit, where it can kind of hurt you sometimes to have that tempo loss of knowing exactly what the next card is, and maybe it's not as useful to you. A land, a basic land or a desert could be okay. Specifically the deserts. There are maybe a couple of deserts that you might want. There's actual desert. You could just grab desert, which is a pretty good card against fairies decks because it deals damage to an attacking creature, I think. After combat. No. I think it has to be during its attack phase. So you can't, it stops the ninjas from coming in, I think. We could look up desert, but I'm not going to. But that is something you could search up. That's cool that this thing can tutor up that card specifically. It can tutor up any of the other Outlaws of Thunder Junction deserts that showed up in this set, the dual color ones that come into play tapped and ping an opponent. Those are okay. Those see some play in Pauper. But I really don't like putting one of those land cards on top of my library. If it put it in my hand, I think I could make an argument about this card being pretty good. I don't think it would see much play, but I think I could make a real argument about it being good. When it puts it on top of your library, no, I don't think so. I just don't quite think so. This is a neat card, but it could have been a good card, and I would have rather it been a good card instead of just neat. Let's go for a 2.7. No. 2.5. Obsidian Acolyte is 1 and a white for a 1/1 human cleric with protection from black. Okay. You can also pay a white, and target creature gains protection from black until end of turn. That makes this one a lot better than that last one we saw that had protection from red. This guy has seen some play, sideboard play, obviously, but has seen some sideboard play, whether it's in mono white weenie decks, or most decks that could splash white could probably throw a copy of this in there. This is really good against a lot of black removal piles, and there's plenty of those out there. There's a lot of good black removal available to those decks that play them. So having a card that comes in and says, not only am I untouchable by all that stuff, but I am untouchable. I can make other cards untouchable by that stuff. Sacrifice effects still going to get through if they're able to do, Extracted Confession or Tithing Blade or something like that. But otherwise, this guy can do some really good work for you, and I don't mind him. Now, he's not going to be a very offensive threat, but pretty solid card. I kind of dig him. I'm going to go for a... he has actually seen some play. I've seen him in sideboards of some decks, and I do want to give him some credit for that. So I'm going to give him like a low 5. I'm going to go for a 5.3. This is probably the best card we've seen today. Falcon Wrath Noble is 3 and a black for a 2/2 vampire noble with flying. Whenever this creature or another creature dies, it's not even a creature you control. That's awesome. Whenever this creature or another creature dies, target player loses a life and you gain a life. Man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good text. That is just the Blood Artist text, right? Whenever this creature or another creature dies, target player loses life and you gain a life. Yep. That is. But this comes on a better body, a 2/2 flyer. 4 mana, double the cost of a Blood Artist. You're not going to be as happy about that. But it's not bad. When did this first come out? It was definitely when I was taking a break. So this would have been post Lorwyn Shadowmoor block, but then pre Lord of the Rings, which is a pretty big gap. Yeah, Innistrad, that makes sense. That's where the vampires come from. So yeah, sure. Pretty good card. Pricey. That's the problem. Four mana for this is you want something out earlier in a Pauper game for sure. And there's plenty of other pingers out there that can do this kind of a thing that can drain. Now, I will say, I guess you can make an argument that there are some cards that are similar to this. Like if I put in Packdoll Terror, this one does see play in Pauper. Sees a decent amount of play in Pauper. And part of it is that this thing has a 3/4 body. It can block a decent amount more. It can attack pretty profitably for 4 mana. And it's on the ground, so I guess you can make that argument against it. But it also, when this creature or another artifact you control enters, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So you can throw down a lot more artifacts. There's a lot of tokens. There's a lot of ornithopters and other free artifacts that can come on the board, and you can get a lot more of those drains. Falkenrath Noble, making creatures die, even in a mono black sacrifice deck when you're sacrificing a lot of stuff, probably not going to be able to do it as often as you could dump artifact tokens onto the field. So I think there's a lot of good stuff here. If this was 3 mana, I think it'd be played in most mono black decks, mono black sacrifice decks, but also probably just most mono black decks at that point, and maybe even more than that. There could be a lot of stuff for this at 3 mana, and it's wild what 1 mana can make a difference for. But in here, I think it does. 4 mana is just too expensive, and we're not going to pay it. Let's go for I'll give it a 3. Snowhorn Rider is 3 Teamer colors, green, blue, red, for a 5/5 human warrior with trample. And it also has morph for 2 Teamer, so 2, a green, a blue, and a red. Morph, as you know, you can cast the card face down as a 2/2 creature for 3 mana, and then turn it face up for its morph cost. What's the point here? I mean, yeah, I get it. The morph allows this kind of to have some modality to it. I can put down a creature earlier. This 6 mana guy can come down as a 3 mana 2/2. Okay, and then I get the tiniest bit of a discount on it, but it's a discount that turn. You're putting more mana into it over 2 turns, over the turn that you played it, which was 3, plus you're paying another 5 to flip it. And that way you spend a whole lot more than the 6 mana that it costs to play it in the first place. And these morph creatures, I generally don't like morph creatures. I don't like playing cards face down. It's not really my thing. I don't get a big kick out of it. Unless it's like what is it, Ixodron that turns every card face down. Like, that's awesome. I love that. Because then we're just having a really good old time. But a morph creature that really the only benefit you get is that it can turn into a bigger creature when you flip it is not really my idea of fun. If I do want to play morph creatures, I want like something like the Willbender that can flip and then do something when it flips. And so it gives it a little bit more reason that you would want to flip it and that you'd want to play it face down in the first place and that you'd want to flip it. It just gives a little bit more traction to that style of play. This feels really boring to flip. I guess the idea here is that you're swinging in with a 2/2 and maybe your opponent blocks it and you can flip it over and have a 5/5. So not only are you killing the opponent's creature, but you're then trampling over. It's a bit of a combat trick in that way. It's like you gave the creature +3/+3 in trample. Well, rather 3+1/+ encounters in trample. Okay, yeah, I guess like the combat trick is the extra bonus, but I just don't like it. I'd rather this start as a face up creature and just say, hey, it's a 2/2 creature, but I can pay this amount of mana and then give it +1/+1 counters and trample. Even though that's more information for the opponent, I think I just would prefer it as a cleaner style Magic card, even as the person playing it. So that's just my opinion. If you like morph, let me know like what some of your favorite morph creatures in the Pauper format are, or just your favorite morph creatures generally, because it's not something I generally play. Score wise, expensive, costs a lot of different kinds of colors. You got to have a very specific deck for it. All the other baggage that I just mentioned that I didn't like about morph creatures. I think I got to go for like a 1.9. I think you're losing a lot of opportunity to play way better cards. Like if you have 6 mana and you're in Teamer colors, I have so many other cards that I think you should be playing instead of this. But that's just me. That was our 20th card. So what say we do one more as a bonus card? Keen Eye Aven is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 bird soldier with flying and cycling 2. Of course, we had to finish with a cycler. We started with some cycling. We had a lot of cycling over the course of this episode. So yeah, we'll end with a little bit more. 4 mana 2/3 is pretty bad. I guess it's better than the Falconroth Noble. Bird Soldier, good creature types. Flying's pretty nice, and the cycling's okay too. Like there's nothing wrong with this card. It is just pretty vanilla. Even with the cycling, that gives it like the tiniest bit of spice. It's like, okay, you threw like a little bit of salt on the card. I guess that has spice, but it's not like spicy. Anyway, this is not a very good card. It's kind of normal. I'm sure it was okay and limited at the time of Legions, but for our purposes, I think we're probably okay. So I'll go ahead and give this a 2.4. And thank you again for sticking with me for 200 episodes. We'll see how much longer we can go. I still enjoy doing this series, and I told myself I'll just keep doing it until I'm not having fun anymore. And here we are 200 episodes later, so I guess I'm still having fun. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.